And he said the next place where we are taking the war is cyberspace. So as we're getting into whatever is happening, we know that the kind of war that we're getting into is in the cyberspace, and we are ready for it.
We are ready for it. So it's the new world in the new ministry year post-COVID. Isn't that just wonderful? Now, I want to quickly give our viewers the meaning of the new world. I don't know whether I should actually say new world order or I should just say the new world. The new world, because that's what our president said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our president said new world. He didn't say order. But listen to what they call their new world order. So, for many years, you've known it as the new world order, right? And as a new period of history, evidencing dramatic change in the world political thought and the balance of power in international relations. So that is a translation of their new world order. So despite varied interpretations of this term, it is primarily associated with the ideological notion of the world governance only in the sense of new collective efforts to identify, understand, or address global problems that go beyond the capacity of individual nation states to solve. So I guess that makes sense when you speak about COVID-19 and all the other things that they've imposed on people, and also talking about climate change.
True. Yep. True.
Right. So, but now obviously we have our new definition of a new world, and we will be getting all that information today. But I want to quickly run into some interesting case studies that we want to talk about today, because of time. So, did you hear that now doctors are diagnosing people with climate change? How crazy is that? So you go to the doctor and then they tell you that the reason why you're not feeling well is because of climate change. That's what they are writing on the prescription. I laughed when I heard of it. I laughed.
If your head is sense and you are a sane person, you would of course laugh at that. But if you are also deceived, because remember what they are trying to actually do is, if you look at what the man of God actually said, remember he said, we are going to be praying, particularly in the month of December, because they are planning something at the year end.
Yeah.
And what they've been planning, if you look at it, Klaus Schwab has actually changed. He's no more talking about the great reset. He's talking about the great narrative.
Yep.
Why? Because what you are seeing, for example, diagnosing somebody with climate change as a disease, it's actually about narratives.
Yep.
Why? Because narratives capture all the audiences like we've seen in the previous 20 months. You are essentially having COVID-19, which was an information war about narratives, and they see the success that they've had. For example, if you look at some nations are actually at 50% vaccinations, and they're effecting lockdowns on the other 50%. And when you look at it, it's a smart way for them to actually achieve what they want to achieve, because you have 50% losses to the businesses because they are shutting down 50% of their customers. And that means they are already transforming that economy under that guise. And no wonder they come out to say somebody can actually be diseased of climate change, which is nonsensical, of course.
It ties into this new world order concept. So they have their own definition for new world order, but if you look at it, you just discover it's another kind of geopolitical ecosystem where a few people decide who are the predators, who are the prey, who are the elites, and who are the deplorables, who are the masses, and what system by which they will promote people from being common to being royal. And this is a clear example where they want to now define the way it should be. Because let's ask, why would a doctor, you cannot be a doctor without going through school, and we would expect a minimum level of education and enlightenment.
Exactly,
but for
absolutely.
the doctor to write it, no. The doctor just did it so that he can climb that ladder of their world order.
It's the saddest thing. Pastor came out the other time and said that media business is dead, it's gone.
Sure.
Listen, the medical profession itself is gone, because during COVID-19, doctors just wrote things that never made sense so that they remain doctors. Now we have doctors that if you go right now, they'll tell you that you're sick because climate change. I don't know whether it's supposed to be a disease or what.
We're even actually being budgeted to just stick it to the medical profession and doctors and scientists, because what you have is you have vast swaths of the earth that are actually getting into this deception. For example, you are speaking about how they are talking about a doctor that is a medical doctor that has diagnosed somebody of climate change. They have also gone beyond, because when you look at climate change or this so-called climate crisis, it's a smart way of introducing something where almost everything else that is actually there is being changed in terms of ownership, in terms of how you can actually tax the citizens, And at the end of the day, you're essentially seeing all the masses that are buying into this so-called climate crisis. What they are being told is, look, forgo your profits, forgo your assets, forgo the savings that you have done, forgo the national integrity that you have in terms of raising or generating wealth as a nation. And then what are you going to do? You're going to accept what they're giving.
Yeah.
And if you, in clear terms, they say it openly. For example, at COP26, they were looking for a carbon price. What is this carbon price? It's a tax on top of what you're already being taxed by your nation.
Yes.
And you begin to
Imagine
wonder,
that.
do
So
we
that
still have
means-
economies? Do we still have business people?
Economies are being decimated, so that means the poor become poorer, the richer become richer. Now, Pastor spoke about how Prince Charles, who I don't know how he will have that political authority to say what he said during COP26, issuing a call for action at the opening ceremony of COP26, telling those attending the Climate Change Summit that time had quite literally run out. And they had to take or have an approach that is more militaristic. Now let us show you that video where he was speaking. Talking about how Prince Charles is talking about a militaristic approach, after we have doctors talking about how patients are now sick of climate change. Let me tell you this story. I know you've got a lot of things to say.
Yes. But before you move on, you remember
on your shoulders, and you do not need me to tell you that the eyes and hopes of the world are upon you.
to add that Justin Trudeau said this presents an opportunity for a great reset. So COP.
The recent IPCC report gave us a clear diagnosis of the scale of the problem. We know what we must do. With a growing global population creating ever-increasing demand on the planet's finite resources, we have to reduce emissions urgently and take action to tackle the carbon already in the atmosphere, including from coal-fired power stations. Putting a value on carbon, thus making carbon capture solutions more economical, is therefore absolutely critical. Similarly, after billions of years of evolution, nature is our best teacher. In this regard, restoring natural capital, accelerating nature-based solutions, and leveraging the circular bioeconomy will be vital to our efforts. As we tackle this crisis, our efforts cannot be a series of independent initiatives running in parallel. The scale and scope of the threat we face call for a global systems-level solution based on radically transforming our current fossil fuel-based economy to one that is genuinely renewable and sustainable. So, ladies and gentlemen, my plea today is for countries to come together to create the environment that enables
tend to
What
actually
type of
side with,
Christians?
yeah, they tend to side with the World Economic Forum, of which we know your Christianity is actually at question when you start, siding with such groups, and that's exactly what they're doing. Because remember, right now, what they couldn't do in Australia, they did in China, and it worked for a while. And now they are trying because they always wanted to do it in Australia, but they didn't actually get the kind of result. And with Australia, you're dealing with a cancer. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK are also involved in such kind of projects, which is why you are hearing winter is coming and they are saying COVID might actually resuscitate. And then you look at...
And then you already start hearing some figures growing in some cities.
Sure. Even the pledges that were done for COP26 for climate crisis, you can tell these are the same group of people that they were championing them and putting them in strategic positions so that they can actually push in media, in technology. And the interesting part about it is when you look at what the World Economic Forum gave in their the map that they had, the mind map that they had, to say we are going to be looking at healthcare, we're going to be looking at climate, we're looking at technology and engineering, food supplies, global supply chains and the like.
your future. It includes television and radio stations from around the world, episodes of your favorite programs, movies you'll actually want to watch, news and analysis features which present the real story behind the stories, sports, specific material for children, youth, women, and men.
With climate change.
Now they're gonna start having a plethora of these because it's just a matter of time before
They
funding.
leaked it.
Yes.
They leaked it, so they've introduced it.
Yeah.
So you now know that there's something called climate change.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Climate change
There's a disease called climate change, or there's a health situation that is called climate change. And you've got the mainstream media, of course, that is playing part in terms of pushing that narrative that Progress was talking about. But here's where it actually gets more interesting. You've got a lot of things that they could actually start ascribing to climate change, like heat wave. Someone starts, I mean, it's hot in the place where they are, and then they have
I have
some
a question.
challenge.
So what happens to countries like Sudan?
Well, there are already countries that they would want to.
Those are very hot countries,
No,
naturally.
see, they are not ready to defend it. They just want you to accept it and
Yeah.
shut up.
Yeah.
Sure. And
So asking these questions, it's really beyond, or it's out of the bounds of what they expect or what they stipulate people should say. They're not asking you to question it, just take it.
Yes.
And by the way, just so that the viewers know, for this year Love Word, we're going to really stress it on narratives because
Absolutely.
it is the currency of deception.
Yeah. True.
Narratives are the currencies of deception. From the first deception ever recorded in the Bible, the serpent on Eve, even to this day, it is just tweaking the truth.
It's true, though.
Gradually,
Now that
till
you've
you
made
are head,
an
you are like
example of
neck
Eve
deep
and the serpent.
in lies. Narratives are the currencies of deception.
And by the way, the narrative is still the same. Remember, from 2020 to 2021, the narrative was there is a pandemic, right?
In a universe of seemingly endless entertainment options, a new star shines the brightest. Alpha. It's exciting, fresh, and out of the ordinary. You've been waiting for it, and now it's here. What is Alpha? It's the result of a vision which has unlimited potential to shape your
The
future.
narrative was there is a pandemic, right? A few months ago, we heard that there's going to be an internet pandemic. And right now they are speaking about
Cyber pandemic.
Now we are also moving towards something called a climate pandemic. Mainly because pandemics have got the same response.
Yeah.
Right? The pandemic that is there from disease, that's why you find out they are trying to give
In
it
this
closer
case,
to
they've been militaristic.
Of course. And because a pandemic requires such, it requires somebody to be militaristic, like
Yep.
they did with COVID-19. You have something that you cannot handle even on TF. So everybody should rally together to fight this pandemic. And whether it's internet, it's climate change that is actually being diagnosed in human beings, as long as it gets that definition pandemic, you find out lockdowns will come up.
Yeah.
And then you find out the military, like we saw with COVID-19, the military was going out against
Will
the
be
virus.
released on the streets. It's very true. So you're talking about lockdowns coming. Listen to this. So the lame media has declared that the notion of the climate lockdowns and, all the things that we're talking about when it comes to the climate change being a lie, they are labeling it fake news and conspiracy theory. It's not new to us anymore.
Yeah.
In fact, that's old news and an old tactic.
Yeah,
if I must
let's forget, right? So when your Love Word started, Pastor talked about those initial deaths being 5G. They called it fake news. It turns out it was right.
was true.
We said it beforehand. It was all about vaccines and Internet of Bodies, Internet of Things, but where bodies are things, right? It was fake news until we know it is true. Then the vaccine mandates, it was said and it was called fake news until it was true. So guess what?
On top of that, quarantine camps. Remember, they said the quarantine, no one will be taken to the quarantine camps. As of today, the military is assisting people to go to the quarantine camps.
Oh,
that we saw from
absolutely,
Pastor.
absolutely. And we're going to share that story with you. So while the media is calling it fake news, so that you can now be accepting to the sicknesses of climate change and climate change as a disease, in India, they're actually preparing to impose the climate lockdowns. We told you about it. Pastor said it.
Yep.
He said, if you are accepting for them to lock you down in COVID-19, well, they're surely going to come for you when it comes to the climate
Something
lockdowns.
else,
Yep. And it's like what you're saying. All they need is for people to accept. And like what we're talking about, the narratives. They just push a narrative. Like COVID-19, you need to actually be locked down. There is climate change, so you need to be locked down. Or in fact, when you were locked down because of COVID-19, we experienced a cleaner air or we experienced a cleaner environment. That means it works for us to actually lock people down. And if people are accepting of it, that actually gives them a footing. And this is I think before it actually goes any further, people need to stop it and nip it in the bud, like how they're protesting in Europe.
Absolutely. You know, when COVID-19 lockdowns happened, the green environmentalist activists came
Of
out
course,
and said
the
that
alarmists.
the air was cleaner and they preferred that people stayed locked down.
Yeah.
They also said for two things, right? Pastor said, number one, which was very, very enlightening and informative, especially as spiritual people. They declare it with their mouth. They speak it into the air. So the way Pastor said it was, they project it, they deny it, then they execute it.
Absolutely. Sure.
Right? Then the second reason is that you get used to it. Just imagine now they are already talking of somebody suffering from a
Climate
change as a sickness.
Well, you
So
have to allow
all
me
they
to
need
laugh.
to do is keep
It's
saying
laughable.
it till somebody get it. Till people start internalizing climate change as a medical condition.
Yeah.
And once people start internalizing it, they execute.
True.
Wow.
And
But what we're happy is that we also have words of projection in our new words.
Absolutely.
So we are not only going to speak to ourselves, we're also confessing to others that, look, we're projecting, and at that level it becomes a war of words.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's what Pastor shared as well when he said Goliath came with his own words, and David
And he
came
was
with
cursing,
and David came
you know?
as well with his own words.
Sure.
So we're going to have that stage. It's
and
going to happen.
extracting from their own, you know, the new project that is actually there. You can actually hear Klaus Schwab, and he is writing a book again, different from the Great Reset. One of the key things that he's saying is we are shaping the narrative so that we can reimagine the future. That means the same principles are still in existence, the fundamentals for what they want to actually set up, which is a new world, they are still using the same. And right now they can see, because the Great Reset was for COVID-19. COVID-19 was actually at the center if you look at that mind map. And now they've seen that it's not actually working. So the next big thing is, what do you use? And then you look at the different other cogs that they had in the mind map. The next one was actually when it comes to climate, because you're looking at climate. This is essentially something that the different nations can actually be forced to rally together. They will tell you your temperature is not actually set by your own boundaries as is. So you have to collaborate with everybody else. And essentially by collaboration, they would think that all the world will rally towards either one leader or one currency or one economy of some sort, or even religion itself can actually be sort of like older to suit the agenda of a one world that is actually run by one person. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because we have entered in this. I like the new words that we got from our men of God, the prophecies that we are fighting with. We have entered in a new world. And we are also entering into the cyber where they intend to actually effect these things from.
And that's exactly what we're going to do. All right, so it's that time that we've all been waiting for, the first day of this Your Love Walk phase with our dear men of God, the president of Love Walk Incorporated. We will be back with more in our post-analysis because we have some interesting stories to actually share with you, some case studies. But I think it will even be more interesting after we've heard from Pastor and we get the direction of what the new world is all about. So I hope you are ready. I hope you've invited somebody, and I hope you have also prepared prayerfully for you to understand and receive the words the right way spiritually. All right, so we will see you after service. Enjoy service, and God bless you.